everyone. Welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. Happy Sunday to those of you guys who are part of my Sunday crew. This is coming a little bit later, but that's okay. No worries. We missed it by a day. This is going to be the April month in review, just taking a look in advance to see what we've got coming for some astrological trends that are going to be taking place in the month of April. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I'm a Western astrologer. I focus on working both with the art of tarot as well as the Sabian Symbols to kind of decode and understand what's going on in the cosmos. If you like my content, make sure you click the button below and you're subscribed so you're alerted as to when I have new videos coming out on the channel. We're here every Sunday talking about the astrology for the week ahead for astro weather. We've got horoscopes that are out for April, so if you guys haven't already seen those, check it out. It's for all of the 12 signs. And there's lots of content that's going to come out this particular month. We've got retrogrades, we've got eclipses, so there's going to be lots of new juicy things to be talking about. And if you're new, drop me a link or a comment below and let me know where you're tuning in from. I'd love to hear from you. All right, so just some brief, I guess, bullet points for April. Just so you guys know, eclipse season is going to be beginning this month. We are going to see a solar eclipse in Aries later in the month. I'll get into that. There will also be a separate video for that. But we generally start feeling eclipses a few weeks prior, just leading up to the eclipse. And this is going to be ushering in a new series of eclipses that are going to be connected to the North Node in Aries transit and the South Node in Libra. So just a heads up, if you guys have any personal planets, okay, 27 to 29 degrees of the cardinal sign. So Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, you guys are going to be feeling this the strongest because you're going to be experiencing a square, or if you're an Aries within that placement, a conjunction. Might want to check out the monthly horoscopes to hear which part of your chart it's going to be landing in. And equally, if you have any placements 0 to 2 degrees of the fixed signs, so Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, it's going to impact you guys as well because this particular eclipse is going to be 1 degree away from the 0 degree point of Taurus, and it will square Pluto. What do we see when we have eclipses? Doors open, doors close. Generally speaking, solar eclipses are more action-oriented, so we will see lots of opportunities for yet another round of fresh starts. This will be the second new moon in Aries that we're going to have. If you guys remember, just this last month, we had a new moon at 0 degrees of Aries. Now we're going to have a new moon solar eclipse, which is also a black moon, at 29 degrees of Aries. So it's that really pivotal point. More to come on that, but just know that we see lots of new things happen, right? When we have eclipses, solar eclipses. We also see lots of new things happen when we have transits happening in Aries because it's the first sign of the zodiac. So if you are still working hard in the Aries area of your chart to set new intentions, to get action oriented, you're gonna have another opportunity. I do see the 29 degrees as being a pivotal degree, and I'll read you guys the Sabian symbol and I'll kind of wrap on that a little bit, but moves, changes of jobs, changes of personal goals, shifts in regards to our relationships. All of these things happen during eclipse season. And eclipses always come in pairs. So 2 weeks later, at the beginning of May, we will see a lunar eclipse in Scorpio, which is going to be wild, y'all. It's going to be in opposition to Uranus. Obviously, having that lunar eclipse is really high emotions, completing something, and it's going to be in financial signs. So we'll talk more about that at the end of April, getting you guys ready for May. Just know that there's a ton of action in the area of Aries. The first 3 weeks of the month of April, the sun is moving through Aries as well, and the sun is exalted here. So we have more action, more charisma. There's more of a sense of like wanting to pick up and go. And many of us might be feeling like we need an outlet. And with some of the squares that we're seeing to Mars and Cancer, we can't just be all action. We have to be constantly checking in with our emotions and making sure that we're making decisions that are in alignment with our home, our family, our intuition, and our feelings. This month, we're also going to see a Mercury retrograde, okay? So I want to just preface this by saying all of this energy hits at the tail end of the month, okay? So we've got like the eclipse that I think is going to be happening closer to the 20th. We're going to have the retrograde on the 21st. Yes, you know, Mercury retrograde, kind of agitating, kind of annoying. It is that period where we do have issues with glitches with technology. There's communication breakdown, emails go missing, there's delays in our flights, right? Okay, it happens. But being prepared and knowing that it's coming, really, it helps us. We're gonna know to put, you know, luggage tags on so things don't go missing at the airport. We're gonna make sure that we double and triple check messages before we send them. We might be more mindful of checking our car before we go on a long distance trip. So don't hesitate to do these things in the shadow, okay? The shadow will actually begin on the 6th of April. So you guys have all the way up until the 6th. And the shadow happens pre and post a retrograde, where we may start feeling that Mercury storm before the retrograde even hits around the time of the 21st. Because the 20th and the 21st are just so extreme between a Sun square Pluto, a solar eclipse, Mercury turning retrograde in conjunction to Uranus, it is going to be stressful for a number of reasons. So I would really recommend, whether you want to get as much done as you can within the first 2 weeks, or you start kind of getting your ducks in a row the first week up until the 6th, it's going to be so much easier. Don't leave financial things, don't leave taxes, don't leave preparedness, and all of this stuff until later in the month, because it'll be stressful. There's no easy way to put it. All right. So when we have Mercury going retrograde, we want to review, revisit, revise, right? So we may find that we're going through old text messages, we're going through closets. Yes, some of us will hear from old friends, from old partners. But in the sign of Taurus, it is a sign that's associated with Venus. So it's about pleasure, it's about values. It's also going to be about money. So many financial themes come up, especially towards the end of the month as the sun ingresses into Taurus. And it's going to be about our self-esteem, our security, our food, our banking, our resources. So that'll be a huge theme. Many of us will experience a rearranging of these things with Mercury going retrograde in the sign of Taurus. And we'll talk about how Mercury's, kind of transits are going to be interesting, because as you see planets leave Aries and go into Taurus, they all have to come into squares with Pluto. So everything's going to get checked. And one thing I want you guys to be asking yourself is, am I responding out of love, Taurus, or am I responding out of fear, right? Pluto and Aquarius. Don't be buying into fear. Don't be making fear-based decisions. Watch for manipulation. Watch for, these mental kind of mind tricks that can be coming up right now, where you're feeling like you're trapped, or you don't have a choice, or you don't have an option. Fixed signs, they don't like to change. So we're going to see that with all of this energy in Taurus, which is about our physical third dimensional experience, and Pluto now being in Aquarius, which is this upgrade that's going on with technology, with the masses, with politics, with our goals, something's kind of landlocked, right? Now, Taurus represents the opening square to Aquarius. So it does say that we're really trying to reevaluate, what can we physically do? I've heard a lot of people say this out in the world. I've seen it on my comments in my YouTube, comment section, people being like, well, you're telling us what's going to happen, but what do we do? The key here is to get back in the body, right? North Node is in Taurus for just a short period of time. Get back in the body rather than feeling like we're paralyzed and we can't make decisions because of fear. And that's a lot of what's being kind of drummed up right now. So we feel like we can't be making grounded, practical, logical decisions. Eat solid, good food, right? Healthy food. Know where your food is coming from. Take stock in what resources you do have. Remember, like I said, North Node in Taurus is, if you don't physically have it, you don't possess it. So whether that's your money, whether that is some extra food that you're putting in the cabinet, if that is survival skills, extras, whatever it is that you need to feel safe, really start reevaluating, what do I have? And in case that the world gets a little hectic for a week or two, do I have enough dog food, right? Do I have some extra cash? Do I have batteries or flashlights or a generator, right? These might be things that people are talking about, because Mercury is gadgets. It's also about applications. I see this as like safeguards also in some of our trading platforms. So I'm going to keep reminding you guys, go through that and look at all your levels, see what you have set up. If you have money waiting to buy in and buy stocks or buy cryptocurrencies, make sure everything is set, because we're going to see lots of glitches literally as Mercury retrogrades, coming into contact with Uranus, electricity, and banking, ATM issues, bank withdrawal issues. We're going to see a lot of this stuff that's going to start happening over the next month. But it's a great time to reevaluate, what do I value, just in general terms. You're going to have to see where Taurus is in your own natal chart to see what's going to be reorganized. And then finally, we're going to call this the luckiest day of the year. Although the transits that particular day are wonderful. It's not just because of the Sun-Jupiter conjunction, but I love, love, love the 11th of April. Mark it on your calendars, save that, because we're going to see the Sun in its exaltation in Aries coming into conjunction with Jupiter. Jupiter being the planet of wisdom, right? Abundance, expansion, good blessings, growth, and positivity. So it's a day where we're really flying high, literally or figuratively. It can be a time that's excellent for traveling, planning a trip, really opening up to learning something new and really believing in ourselves. And it's also going to be still in close proximity to this eclipse. In fact, when we have the solar eclipse, Jupiter will be invisible. Jupiter is going to be behind the eclipse. So it's also kind of foreshadowing that even though there's sudden events that are going to manifest and transpire, we have to act very quickly. Jupiter is kind of like blessing all of us from behind the scenes. And as we see Jupiter come into conjunction with that 29 degrees of Aries in May, and then we see the North Node reactivate that degree, we're going to find that thinking on our feet, listening to our intuition, making definitive decisions, launching into things, even if it's scary, and really being courageous is going to benefit us so much. So look for the 11th to be a really positive day, not just because the Sun and Jupiter brings us positivity and blessings, but also it helps us believe in ourselves, right? So that particular day, I think we're going to see the moon go through Sagittarius, also kind of light that up a little bit. Bringing even more positivity to what we're learning, what we're sharing, where we're going. And we will see Venus's ingress into Gemini making a trine to Pluto. So that's for wealth. That's going to be for positive and really powerful alliances that we may have, agreements, contracts, anything in regards to our relationship with friends, and really being able to express what it is that we love and value. So put that on your schedule. I don't even know what day it's going to fall under, so you guys will have to let me know. And like I said, get as much done as you can within the first half of April. The Sun being in Aries for the first half of the month has us active, brave, bold, and really helping us focus on fresh starts. The last 10 days of April, eclipses, retrogrades, a whole lot of pressure, Pluto squares. Let's be proactive. That's my word for the month. I think proactive is the key. And having a little foresight into what's coming. And you guys will really see this, not only because you're listening to, my forecast, but this is going to come through the Sabian symbols. I was taking a look at the Sabian symbols for the Sun-Jupiter conjunction and for the solar eclipse in Aries. And I'll read them for you so that way you guys have some insight. All right, so you guys are listening to this on the 2nd of April, or maybe at some point in April if you're listening back, but it's being put out on the 2nd of April. So I want to show you guys just briefly what's going on for the week ahead. So it's Sunday. Today we have Mars coming into a trine with the South Node. And I know I touch on each week ahead. I'll talk about Sunday and then I talk about it again just to remind you guys. Mars in Cancer, right? Emotional actions, labor, pains, movement. Having Mars in this sign is not comfortable. But you know what? We're going to make lemonade. Mars is forming a trine to the South Node in Scorpio. The South Node is ruled by Mars. So we're doing the emotional work. We're focusing on emotional boundaries, and whatever isn't serving us, we're letting it all go. We've got a really nice water trine that's been building the last couple of days with Mars in trine to the South Node, cutting and clearing and detoxing and purging. Stay hydrated, stay active, pay attention to your emotions. And Saturn and Mars in a trine here. Saturn is the vessel, right? So it's what's creating the boundaries and the limits for everything that we're working in. So I love to see Mars, which is about action and motivation, and Saturn, which is about really finding that stability, working in harmony. And we're like, you know what? I don't want to fall back into these old patterns. I don't want to go back to pain. I don't want to go back to fear. So I'm actually going to do the emotional work necessary to stand up, protect myself, and listen to my intuition. You've been feeling that since yesterday on the 1st. You're going to have it about the 2nd into the 3rd. Then we're going to start to lose it. So if you want to cut something out, if you want to remove something, if you want to clean something up, if you want to say, you know what, I'm cutting this off, wonderful time to do it, especially with that moon being in Virgo, which is already focusing on health. and organization and wellness, and the sextile between these two planets. Now you're going to feel today that communication is getting intense. Mercury is going to drop into the last degree of Aries, and it's going to start coming into a square with Pluto today and tomorrow. So what happens here? It's not going to perfect really until the 3rd, but when it does get into the 3rd, let's just go there now. It's intense. You know, having a planet at a 0 degree of any sign is going to be the purest form of that sign, but it represents intensity. So what is Mercury in Taurus? I hold on to my ideas. I value what I have to say. I want to talk about money. I want to talk about food. I want to talk about security. So it's in the skies, and it's really important because the moon is going to be in Virgo. So as the moon's in Virgo, it's trining all these planets in Taurus. So it's saying, yes, I want to get my taxes done. I want to clean, organize. I want to focus on prepping or, you know, helping other people, cleaning up, focusing on being of service. But Mercury in a square to Pluto is going to bring up intense conversations, specifically in regards to spying, tech, how much control we have over our finances. And while Mercury is in the sign of Taurus, it's getting closer and closer to the North Node. Mercury moves very quickly, so we might only notice this focus and intense conversations about money and resources, maybe the 3rd and the 4th. And like I said, Taurus wants to talk money, pleasure, but this is also budgets, okay, guys? So it really depends on where Taurus is in your chart, but I think just generally speaking, when Mercury, the planet of organization, cleanliness, systems, goes retrograde in Taurus, we're gonna reevaluate, do I like what I'm spending money on? How much money do I really have in my bank account? What am I valuing? Do I still want to eat this? Is it time for me to reorganize some of my finances? What can I afford, right? These may be things that you're going to be kind of asking yourself. And there can also be a reorganization of financial institutions. I actually think that might happen. We might hear about how banking is going to change as a result of new political decisions and where we're going with the future of tech and technology and money and resources. And honestly, I don't like the Mercury square Pluto. I feel like there can be some real issues in regards to security and how much information companies or, even government have in regards to what we are spending. As we know, pretty soon here over the summer, we're going to have the new in the United States, at least, the Fed Now transactions that are going to be happening, where once you get into that system and you're making transactions and you're buying things and you're moving money, yes, it will be convenient, right? But what we'll hear a lot with Pluto and Aquarius is it's convenient, it's fast, it's quick, it's easy. But what you want to be asking yourself is, who's going to look at that stuff? And who's going to determine how we can spend our money? And is it going to impact us, and are we losing our security? I also think that this is going to be bringing up a lot in regards to this restrict bill that we're hearing about in the United States, or everybody's calling the TikTok ban. I encourage you guys to go and read through it. It's pages and pages long, but I've been kind of digging through it these last few days, this last week, and there's way more in this than what meets the eye. I think a lot of people want to just bypass this and say, oh, it's just about TikTok, when in reality, it's going to be about how much information we're giving up in regards to all of our personal searching, our applications, the internet, who determines what we can look at, whether or not we're going to be able to use VPN. There's some really interesting stuff that's actually kind of scary, in my opinion. Go and do your own research, but there's just more than what meets the eye. And I think that it's going to be bringing up the themes of power and how much we are worth, right? So when you're being given a free service, at least this is what I've been thinking about, you are the product. Where companies are going to be really valuing and wanting to buy our search information, having more insight into what we're looking for, and I think it's going to bring up lots of security issues. So I encourage you guys to look into that. And we will see also in our own life where we're having really intense conversations about, well, this is what I need, but this is what's best for everybody, and we're going to see this tug of war. Because Aquarius is the collective, and us personally, on a personal level, what I have is going to be Taurus. Now we're going to feel that kind of in the mix, like I said, for a couple days. The next major transit that I want to take you guys to is going to be on the 5th. And we have a lot of stuff going on the 5th, so take out your red Sharpie. Make all the stars around this day, circle it so you know that there is just a lot going on, okay? First of all, it's a full moon. That video is out. It's full moon in Libra, so you can check that out. And when we have full moons, things are intense. Feelings are really brought to the surface. We see huge decisions, conclusions, events that have been really building for the better part of not just the last 2 weeks since the new moon in Aries, which is about us personally. Now, 2 weeks later, we're looking at, well, how personal decisions and actions are impacting our relationships, Libra. But this is a full moon that was seeded way back in the fall of 2022. So you go back, look at the new moon that we had in Libra in the fall of 2022. We've been building towards this for 6 months. In particular, that new moon, I believe, was at 2 degrees of Libra. So you might want to look at where you have Libra in your chart. That's where we're having this full moon. I mean, outside of the Mercury square Pluto, which is still lingering, we begin to see some other Mercury aspects. So we're going to see Mercury coming into contact with the North Node, which just generally speaking is going to be bringing up really important conversations we have to have about our future. Because the North Node is ruled by Venus, it's also going to be about where are we investing our money, or what are we doing in case this or this happens. It's about coming up with plans to navigate the path forward in regards to our financial well-being. It may be a time where there's, important words, contracts and calls that are going on, emails, things that are coming in. And what I like is that, Mercury is sextiling Saturn. So there is some sense of Saturn looking out for us, there being some invisible protection or some, commitment or some maturity in the Pisces area of your chart that is lending energy to making better decisions in the sign of Taurus. Whenever we see a sextile, there is support. So I like it when Saturn is sextiling something because it's saying, hey, in Pisces, we're using our intuition, we're thinking, we're sitting and meditating on things. So it might be a day before you jump into having conversations, you sit with it and see how it kind of resonates with you. Not wild about the Sun Chiron conjunction. I mean, we're having a full moon around 16 degrees directly in opposition to the Sun, which is the full moon. On the axis of Aries and Libra, it represents us as an individual versus or together with the moon in Libra, others. So there's action, Sun and Aries, on a personal level, which is showing us whether or not we're really showing up in relationships that we need to. And not just romantic relationships with our counselors, with our clients, with our friends, with our family. And this is stressful, right? There's no way to kind of put it easily. I think that there can be a lot of deflecting, there can be a lot of acting out, and where we're acting out and not working on healing our own wounds, we can be acting very selfishly with the Sun, Chiron, and Aries and creating a bit of intensity within some of our relationships. So be mindful with the Sun conjunct Chiron. There can be physical healing things going on, right? Tending to physical wounds, cuts, burns, accidents. But I think that it's more, about our own personal insecurities and really needing to be aware of these insecurities and these ego issues and healing the self-inflicted wounds. What this moon presents us with the opportunity to do is, learn to kind of go, I'm not perfect. I can't do everything perfectly. I have to kind of cut myself a break. I have to be mindful of really taking care of myself so that way I can show up better for others and vice versa. So there can be a lot of feedback and talking to other people about that and having some really deep conversations about, hey, this is what I value and I don't like this, and I needed support and I don't feel like I'm getting it. And I encourage you guys to fight for relationships that are worth fighting for. That's really the lesson here, especially with Venus being the ruler of this moon. She's moving away from Uranus over the last week or so. So there's been some conflict or some friction or kind of needing some freedom. But now she's moving into a sextile with Neptune. So there is more room for sensitivity, being emotional, receptive, and open to connecting with other people. So there's a lot going on the 5th. Try with these oppositions not to take it personally if individuals are not able to meet you halfway. It may, with the moon in Libra, be beneficial for us to say, how are you? How can I help you? What do you need? What can I do to better support you? That's probably one of the best things we can be asking people. The days revolving around the 5th, the 4th, 5th, 6th, that energy is going to be going for a while, because even after the full moon, we're going to see the moon move into the late degrees of Libra, and it's going to oppose Jupiter. So it'll bleed into about the 6th of April. Okay. I want to take you guys now to the 7th. And on the 7th, we're going to see Venus in Taurus sextile Neptune in Pisces. And this will be exact. So that was kind of building around the time of the full moon, but now it's going to be exact. Interesting energy. I mean, generally, I like the sextile. So it is going to talk about really allowing us to feel dreamy and inspired, social, creative. And we'll see a number of sextiles that are going to be taking place between planets in Taurus and planets in Pisces. I think you guys have heard me reference this in the past as kind of Pisces being the vision, being the manifestation, the dream, what you're praying for, what you're, manifesting. And it gives the blueprints to Taurus and it says, okay, go and build this thing, right? So we're really trying to build our ideal future. We're really trying to build new systems. We're trying to build more support, more security. And it's all built right now off of a dream. So both Taurus season and also a lot of the retrograde is going to be about how do we physically bring these things to life? How do we develop new systems? How do we feed people? How do we come up with new solutions for energy? How do we figure out this financial issue? Because Saturn is structures, right? And Saturn's in a sign that dissolves, Pisces. So what we're seeing is, structures dissolving, not just buildings, but all kinds of cultural issues that are coming up as a result of society kind of eroding, banks falling apart, things literally having less and less support. And so there can be a sense of being proactive and planning in the off chance that things collapse. But there's also a sense of going, okay, rather than waiting for the crisis, how can we feel inspired and come up with new ideas? So this is wonderful energy for artists, for people who are involved in philanthropy, for people who are designers, who are spiritualists, healers, architects, people who work with food and raw materials or farming. And we're trying to figure out how to come up with solutions. These are still people who are going to be very important for the next year or two as Jupiter is coming into Taurus. So look for that support to be kind of, bringing a little bit more inspiration and bringing a little bit more peace socially. And then I'll take you guys to the 8th, the very next day, where we see Mercury in Taurus, sextile Mars in Cancer. So you'll start to see this now as planets are coming into Taurus. Then we'll see a sextile from Taurus to Cancer. So this is cool because we start to see that the Taurus area of our life is supporting because of Saturn, and it's also supporting actions and forward momentum with Mars. So planets are actually starting to work together. Yes, but the moon is in Scorpio, okay? And the moon is going to be in opposition to Venus and Uranus. And we're going to be feeling like we need more, we're reaching for more, we need more support. But in spite of that, Mercury in a sextile with Mars is basically saying, let's communicate our needs for security, for shelter, for home, for our family. Let's come up with a plan, an action plan, right? Mercury is saying, this is how you do it. This is how you build it. And Cancer goes, okay, let's go and figure it out. Cancer and Taurus together, this combination wants to make sure, do we have shelter? Do we have food? Do we have what we need to be able to protect our home, our family, right? Our communities. Very sensitive because these are both Venus and lunar placements. So there's a lot of feminine energy right now that's about growing and nurturing and allowing space to protect. So we just might notice that there's just a lot more talking to our families, checking in with them, focusing on asking our people in our community, asking our neighbors, what do you need? Do you need anything? How can I help you? We're here if you need anything, and really strengthening some of those bonds within the people who live closest to us. This is the magical day on the 11th when the sun comes into conjunction with Jupiter at 21 degrees. So if you have anything from 20 to 22 degrees of Aries in particular, sun, moon, rising, if this is your Jupiter return, if your Venus is here, if your moon is here, it's going to be extra, extra magical for you. This particular conjunction, like I said, it's considered to be the luckiest day. It's happening at 21 degrees, which is also a Sag degree. So it might be about expanding, learning, traveling, flying. It might be about self-knowledge, self-development, enthusiasm, courage, passion, desire, right? These are all things that kind of come up for me I think in the area of Aries, you know, the word that always comes up for this sign for me is courage. Having the courage to be willing to go into uncharted territory and just taking the first step, even if it means you don't know how it's going to end, you're doing it anyway, and believing in yourself. This very same day, we're going to have the moon, at least for the early morning hours, it'll be in in Sag. So that's even more interesting with the moon in Sagittarius, because when the moon's in Sag, we're looking at Jupiter. So maybe you guys are feeding off of this like the evening of the 10th going into the 11th. And fire trines are great. Lots of action, lots of fun, right? So I'm wondering, like, what are we doing around these days? Even though I think it's going to be early week, there's still a sense of adventure and really feeling excited about the future. We're then going to see Venus come into Gemini. And like I said, Venus being in Gemini is going to trine Pluto. Now, Venus in Gemini, social butterfly, right? So Venus moving into a mercurial sign, double the trouble. So there can definitely be a sense of, having options, having choices, needing freedom, needing to roam. Pretty words, Venus in Gemini, and being able to communicate what it is that we love. Love through a state of change, transformation, ideas, sharing, writing. And I love Venus trine Pluto. I think that on top of this conjunction makes that day so particularly wonderful. With Venus in Gemini, trine Pluto in Aquarius, powerful unions, friendships, support, agreements. Wonderful day for like agreeing to something, signing a contract, merging with another person, saying I love you, talking about the future. It's just such a magical, magical day. So agreements and relationships should go well. This is not just, it's not really so much romantic, although Venus is romantic, but Venus in Gemini can be your neighbor. It can be somebody online. It can be a sibling, a cousin. And the trine to Pluto is like, hey, I've got your back. Like if anything goes wrong, I'm here for you. Like I'm here to support you. So this can be a really powerful day for people coming together and aligning their goals with one another and talking about how we can improve things in the future. Let me read to you guys that Sabian symbol. I forgot, but now I'm just remembering. That's going to be right on top of my moon. That's going to be an interesting day. All right, so we've got Aries, 21 degrees and change. So we're going to read 22 degrees. This is the Sabian symbol. And if you guys have this book, it's page 53. So Aries 22, the gate to the garden of desire. The keyword is prospect. The theme is exercising options. The symbol speaks to complete openness to life and to childlike belief that the world is created for personal enjoyment. The image of the gate in the garden of desire suggests whatever is desired can easily be obtained with little effort. However, there is nothing in this image that indicates any pressure or incentive to take action. Instead, there's almost always a quality in this image that suggests the individual may completely satisfied knowing that whatever he wants is within reach and waiting to be used at his leisure, but making no effort to obtain it. Its highest, the symbol represents a heightened alertness to opportunity and instinct for knowing the right time to make a move or exercise an option. Watch for loss of opportunity through procrastination or inaction. The accent is on new openings and opportunities. Something you've been waiting for is now within reach, but it's up to you to make the first move. Your greatest advantage lies in looking before you leap and making your move at the right time. Guard against letting an opportunity slip through your fingers because you're afraid to speak up or reach out and accept what is being offered to you. Don't take too long to make up your mind. The offer may be withdrawn. Stepping stones would be opportunity, possibilities, openness, alertness, enjoyment, temptation, desire, and options. Very exciting. So I love that. I love that Aries is action. I love that this talks about focusing on what you desire and realizing that it's there. If you just open and let it kind of come to you and you believe that it's possible, then it's then able to like really fully manifest, right? But you have to work within a timely fashion. So watch what happens within that day. More on that. We'll talk probably more about that in the next week or so. Okay, and in my horoscopes, I talk about where that's happening in all of the charts. All right, so now let's take it to the 14th. And on the 14th of the month, we see Venus in Gemini come into a square with Saturn in Pisces. So yes, Venus is in that beautiful trine to Pluto still, okay? And I think you're actually going to see some sweetness even in the early hours of the 14th as the moon and Pluto come into a trine with Venus. However, as soon as Venus hits about we're splitting hairs, 3 degrees and change of Gemini, and it hits 4, it's going to square Saturn. So a Venus square Saturn day, you know, what comes up during these transits? Delays, disappointments in love or finance. In particular, having Saturn in a sign that deals with Neptune, so it can be about invisible boundaries and not knowing our limits, and liquids or alcohol or drugs or addiction. And Venus moving into a mercurial sign, which is more mental, there's a sense of, you know, did they mean it? Was it beer goggles? How do they really feel? Why are they not connecting? Why are they ghosting? Definitely can have some disappointments in love or finances. Now, you may feel that a day or two later when the moon comes into conjunction with Saturn as well. So it's not purely limited to this day, because we'll feel sometimes the transit a day or two early and it'll still kind of hang around for a little bit. Would not recommend with a Venus square Saturn, you know, engagements, marriage, making any big changes to your physical appearance, dyeing your hair a certain new color, because this is in mutable signs. So we may not be pleased with the changes we're making in our finances, our relationships, or our aesthetic. That'll start to get a little bit easier after the 16th when we start to see the moon leave the conjunction with Saturn in the square to Venus. In particular, if you are a Venus ruled chart, so Taurus and Libra risings, this is what you really want to watch for. There can be some disappointments on this particular day. And be mindful of like financial transactions, especially with apps and things that might be more international. There can also be some disappointing news that's coming out financially, because remember, Venus rules the North Node. So with Venus ruling the North Node with the square to Saturn, it might be like, well, we thought this was going to get better, or maybe we'll see a bit of a market rally, and then all of a sudden it's disappointing, or it's short-lived, or we're finding out that there's economic numbers and things coming out that is not as positive as we thought it would be. All right, so then we're going to move to the 20th. And you're going to see coming up to the eclipse, as the moon comes into Aries on the 19th, it's going to pass Jupiter. So that's positive, although we're coming into that eclipse energy, so it's intense. It's going to then pass Jupiter in the PM hours, the afternoon PM hours on the 19th. And then it's actually going to hit 29 degrees, and we're going to see the eclipse in some places the evening of the 19th, and other places it's going to be the 20th. Okay, so where I'm Central Time, it's actually going to happen the evening of the 19th. But adjust your time zones. Honestly, the day before, the day of, the day after, you're going to feel it. It's an eclipse. And there's so many aspects with this eclipse, it's like not even funny. So like I said, sudden starts, right? Aries, starting, initiating, solar eclipse, action. 29 degrees, a critical point. We got to do this. We got to get it going. We got to get it going now, because this is where we go from like all of the movement, action, passion of a Mars related sign. And then we ingress into Taurus, which is like, we've been running a marathon, and then we can hang out and we can have our like high carb meal, right? Post marathon. We can go from, you know, working like crazy, and then we go home and then we indulge and we enjoy, or after a long day, we're going to go and hang out and, you know, be outside and have a picnic and just relax and kind of be connected and slow down. Taurus wants us to slow down. But watch for sudden starts, beginnings, and actions. Because it's at that critical degree, I get a little anxious because it's also in a square to Pluto. I have a feeling, I don't like saying this, but you know, the sun can be a king. Solar eclipses can be omens for huge changes that are going to be happening with solar energies. So it can be rulers, kings, you know, high profile people, celebrities. And that square to Pluto can be an indication that there is going to be somebody like this that may be associated with ruling, or maybe associated with the military, that steps down. Or we see like the falling of a king. Will it happen this day? I don't know, right? Eclipse eclipses do kick up a lot of dust, but I know that this will get activated several times. So like I said, when Jupiter hits this degree mid-May, when the North Node goes into Aries and it sits there in July, that's going to be very active when the Sun is in Cancer, because we're going to see a grand fixed cross. Pluto will retrograde back to Capricorn. It can be the beginning talk of whether or not there is some military mobilization. If there is war, right, Jupiter will inflame this, and we're going to see lots of big egos and people who are threatening other people. Ugh, it's not fun. So we'll see how it plays out in the world, fingers crossed. At the time of the eclipse, like I said, Jupiter is invisible, so he is behind the eclipse. So whatever conflict or things kind of get drawn up, or whatever we suddenly get launched into, Jupiter will come through and we'll go, actually, it's probably a good thing that I started doing this because, and we'll find out that we have all these new beginnings in the area of Aries in our chart. Solar eclipse in Aries ruled by Mars. Mars obviously debilitated in the sign of Cancer. Mars is square Chiron in Aries, so that does make me feel like some people realizing like, oh, we don't really want war. We don't really want to send, people to go and fight, or we don't want to have conflict at home or within our home country. Mars is not really doing much other than that. We have a sextile to Uranus, which is still combative. We have a sextile to Mercury, which is still, kind of fierce, and we're getting ready to see Mercury go retrograde the very next day. I think the big thing for me is not even the 29, it's not even Mars, it's the fact that this is square Pluto. And that makes me feel like there is some energy that is threatening, dangerous, it's bullies, and it's really highlighting this Pluto in Aquarius coming into the square with the nodes. And I would not underestimate that. I'm going to make a whole video on that because it represents a skipped step. In evolutionary astrology, it means that unless we don't want to evolve, we don't want to go to the next level, we don't want to see what happens in the world, we must absolutely integrate the energy of this particular planet. And Pluto does not screw around. Pluto in Aquarius represents the potential where there can be a darker side of society, right? A darker side of technology, a darker side of politics that really could negatively affect us. And it's almost like it's the Scooby-Doo moment. You unmask the monster or the ghost or the ghoul, and everybody thinks it's like this scary thing, and then you unmask it and you realize, oh, it's actually so-and-so who we know, and it's like this other character that was introduced earlier in the cartoon. What we're going to find is that the unmasking is happening, and what it is not a monster. It's people who are within society, who are running society, people who are high up in politics, people who are managing big companies. The villains are getting ready to be exposed. And we're going to realize that these people have too much power, right? Certain companies have too much power. Certain social media platforms have too much power. But equally, Pluto in Aquarius is about the power of the people. And where the power of the people are stepping in saying, hey, this is affecting our banks. This is affecting our livelihood. This is affecting our planet. So yes, you're going to hear a huge push in an agenda talking about, saving the planet and all this environmental stuff. But we're also going to start to see why there is an incentive to do that, because they want to digitalize cash. They want to get rid of cash. They want to abolish cash. Part of the squares between Aquarius and Pluto is going to be us finding out that cash does not necessarily have the same value it used to. There's been an incentive for several years, I think, to get rid of it. And it's to also be able to control what we have. And so with the North Node in Taurus still, with Jupiter going into Taurus, what we have and the way that we look at wealth is going to change. Wealth isn't going to be a brand new car in the garage. It's not going to be a designer bag. It's not going to be a big house. Wealth is going to be, can you feed your family? Do you know how to live off the land? Do you know how to get back to basics? Do you know how to grow things? Do you know how to make things? Do you know how to build things? The days of being cute is over. Have you guys seen that meme? It's like men are going to want women that can keep chickens. I mean, I know this sounds crazy. I know it does. But there is going to be this turn where alternative lifestyles is going to be about getting back to working with the earth and the natural cycles of life and pleasure and what it means to have pleasure, not feeling like we're living a life where we're just working to be able to just get by. When we start changing our values, we're going to realize that we can simplify our lives and we don't have to be stuck in the system. So much of these transits are going to play out over these next few months. Sun enters Taurus, just after the eclipse. which is great because we're going to start to see, okay, the sun and the moon are in Taurus. In theory, that's wonderful. Moon's in exaltation. It's coming into conjunction with the North Node. In any other situation, if the nodes were not in fixed signs, or maybe if Pluto was not in Aquarius, I would be like, oh, thank God. But actually, it's going to bring more intensity to the situation because immediately we see the sun and the moon square Pluto. So we realize that some of these shocking events are actually going to have a big impact on our resources, on our money, on our banks. Yes, the eclipse is in Aries. The next eclipse, 2 weeks later, will be in Scorpio. So that will be it'll be a very financial eclipse. You know, the 2 weeks between, anything goes. It's just kind of like, yeah, literally anything goes in between eclipses. It feels like this weird like wormhole that we're in. I'm not wild about Sun square Pluto because we're going to start feeling threatened about what we can have and what we can possess. I'm not wild about Moon square Pluto because it says collectively we're feeling very strongly that we're being emotionally threatened. When this eclipse happens, eat well, ground your body, go outside, plant something, put your feet in the sand, go for a walk, be out in nature, work with aromatherapy, buy yourself flowers, work with herbs, anything that you can do that's incorporating the element of earth, crystals, anything to just be like, grounding it out. I'm not going to respond and react out of fear. That's the lesson here. Sun comes into a square, so we're going to see, I think, conflict between companies and consumers. We're going to hear more about the fact that certain, retailers are saying we're not taking cash. We're going to see more people that are going to be responding very strongly to where they're choosing to spend their money. I feel like people have to realize that you have to vote with your pocketbook. You have to vote with your dollars. If you don't like the direction that things are going in and you're potentially shopping in stores where you don't align with their political beliefs, or what they're donating to or their causes, don't shop there. It's that simple. Same thing with banks. Don't bank there. I'm really disappointed to see some of the stuff that's going on because there's not a lot of support right now for smaller banks. I do think we're also going to hear a lot in regards to the bond market because that's what Taurus is, it's bonds. So we come off of that eclipse. It's going to rattle for a bit. And at least the moon is going to be in Taurus and the sun's going to be in Taurus, and we can kind of stabilize. Here's what's wild. On the 21st, while the moon is coming into contact with Mercury retrogrades. So we've got Moon Mercury communicating, talking about systems, money, and resources. Moon hits Uranus, Mercury retrogrades. Mark my words. Power outages, shortages, people panicking, bank runs, people trying to get money out of machines. They're not going to be able to do it. We're going to hear more about money being disrupted as a result of communications and people being able to share or voice their opinions. This is fact. Okay, I'm telling you guys facts. We've seen it in Canada. I have a hunch we're going to see some of this stuff start up in France. With some of the protests that are going on there. There's protests everywhere right now. You would never know it because the mainstream media is not talking about it, but I have a feeling it's going to be more about whether or not people are happy, which I'm going to assume they're not with the moon Uranus, with some of the financial things that are being decided upon currently in the world, right? So huge wealth transfers, especially as we start to see Jupiter come into Taurus and square Pluto. This is where we see dictators and totalitarianism, and we're going to see people who are having land grabs and money grabs, and it's going to get really interesting because we're going to start to see why there is a sense of wanting to control resources, because if you control resources, then you're able to control people, whether it's money, food, what have you. But here's what's beautiful about some of these really uncomfortable angles is that it does promote, hey, there's crisis, how do we come up with solutions? So when people start realizing, well, there's more of us than there are politicians. I heard somebody talk about this the other day. I'm not going to say the number, I don't know, but I could have sworn that they said that there was several thousand people for every one politician. I think it was like tens of thousands of people for every one politician that's representing districts, states, whatever. And people need to realize that. They work for us. And something that I keep thinking about over and over is like, wow, they want to go to this system where maybe there's digital IDs, maybe there's CBDCs. Nobody really knows, but a lot of the things that we've been talking about as conspiracy theorists are now starting to we're seeing that they're paving the way for this. I think about the Sabian symbol that I read to you guys a couple of months ago about having them be judged by, the standards that they hold us to. So if we're moving to systems where they're going to monitor what we're spending and where our money is going and how we can and cannot spend it, and wanting total transparency, wanting to pass bills and stuff, looking into how we're spending our money, are they going to do that? Are we going to have total transparency? Are we going to see why our infrastructure is failing, at least here in the United States? Are we going to see why there's trillions of dollars that go missing in the budget? Are we going to see where our taxes are being spent? Are we going to really have clarity in terms of, how much money the country is making from acts of war or from trading, from trading military things? I mean, like, seriously, I start to question this and go, like, at what point is the system kind of like rigged? So what may happen with the Mercury retrograde in Taurus, because it's about turning inward and reflecting and changing direction with financial systems, the financial markets may take a sudden turn. The North Node grows. So I think we're actually going to start to see like a rally, but then we're going to realize it's going to probably snap back pretty gnarly from this retrograde until the eclipse that we're going to see right around the 5th of May. So Mercury, Moon, Uranus conjunct, changes in resources, economic downturns, banking issues, electronic glitches. Get money off of exchanges. Okay, you want to do it before this, because when the retrograde happens, we're going to have problems getting it on and off. And people aren't going to get money in or out. Where this is going to happen, I cannot even tell you, because the astrology, it can give you certain countries, but we really don't know. We just know that because the moon's going to hit Mercury, it's going to be happening collectively. And I would be looking at some of these online transactions, some of the online trading companies and accounts, some of these crypto trading platforms, that stuff I would be looking at, because it's about electronic stuff. Okay, so then we're going to take this to the 23rd. And on the 23rd, Mercury in Taurus sextiles Mars in Cancer, making moves, feeling protected and secure. So it's happening again. So we're going to see Mercury and Mars sextile several times. This is the second time in the midst of the retrograde. So it's like, wait a second, what are we doing? Where are we going? And keep in mind, once we're in Taurus season, we have to focus on Venus. So the moon and Venus will be meeting this day, which is kind of like, people trying to remedy things, talking about it online. There's going to be lots of media coming out, lots of coverage about something. So moon and Venus is bringing up and drumming up all of this energy. That's like, oh, did you hear about this change that's coming? That's coming. We'll see. But also making moves to feel protected. Mercury is about those systems and discussing and plotting and planning and restructuring something, so that way we know where we're going. I think a lot of people are getting ready. They're looking around going, okay, is the housing market going to change, right? Mars in Cancer. And do we have everything ready to jump in and buy something? We might also hear more about fluctuations and changes of values in regards to physical goods. So I think of this could be fluctuations with natural gas. This could be fluctuations with resources, with agriculture, metals in particular. We might hear more about that, people are pivoting and kind of reworking or diversifying their investments. I think that's smart, because nobody really knows which way this is going to go. So putting all of your eggs in one basket is not a smart move. Then we're going to go to the 24th. And on the 24th, we're going to have the Sun conjunct the North Node in Taurus at 4 degrees. I like this. Let me make it 4 degrees. That's going to drive me crazy. There we go. Sun conjunct the North Node, shining a light on where we are going in the future. Okay? 4 degrees, home, stability, resources, family, roots, grounding, right? So it's like, are we shifting our budget to going, we're actually gonna grow some vegetables this summer. So let's put stuff together to get a garden. Let's figure it out. Making food at home, right? Becoming more resourceful. The Sun North Node is just basically saying like, hey, whatever you're doing this day, it's kind of like you're on track, you're on the path. I think we'll see this even more as the moon comes into Cancer later in the day. And it starts sextiling that sun, because it is about home and groundedness and having everything that we need and feeling safe and secure. planning, right? The moon is at home, so it's also very emotional, listening to its intuition and its drive. But it's about what we possess, being in the body, grounding, experiencing pleasure, right? Making time, even in the midst of some of the stuff that's going on. Don't let the world rattle you. That sun north node says, have the spoonful of honey, buy the flowers, right? Make the home cooked meal, paint, dance, draw, something that's going to allow you to get back into the body. And the sextile to Saturn equally is saying the same thing. Having little self-routine or self-care routines that you can do that just keeps you grounded in the midst of what's going to feel like a little bit of a disorienting time. I love that moon coming into Cancer, trining Saturn as well, where I feel like it's just about really focusing on what you're building, what you're creating, not the stuff that's breaking down around you. Building the dream with the sun coming into a sextile with Saturn, building the dream. Really focusing on like, nope, not going to get, I'm not going to get startled. I'm not going to get taken off path. I'm just going to keep moving forward. That sextile happens on the 25th. And then I'm going to take you guys to the 29th. And on the 29th, we are going to see Mars in Cancer sextile Uranus at 18 degrees. Using intuition and emotions to think on our feet, knowing how to adapt, how to make moves quickly and suddenly. Like I said, guys, we're going to see some major opportunities for wealth transfer. It doesn't always have to be like the big bad wolf that's taking from the little guys. It could be people who are going, I've been saving, I've been waiting for this. If things suddenly change, I am going to jump in and buy land. I am going to jump in and buy stocks. I am going to jump in and, buy extra food or resources. So knowing how to pivot and think on your feet at the end of April is going to be really important. This goes into May, but I'm going to bring it up anyway because you guys are going to start feeling it. But on the 30th, you're going to start feeling the Kazemi. So I'll talk about this more later in the month as I get ready to do my May horoscopes, but Mercury will retrograde and come into conjunction with the sun around the 1st and the 2nd of May. You may start feeling that early. This is the halfway point in the Mercury retrograde. I believe Mercury is going to retrograde from around 15 degrees to, 15 to 5 degrees of Taurus. So if you have anything between those degrees, it's going to retrograde through it. But the Kazemi is the halfway point. So when Mercury retrogrades, comes into conjunction with the sun, it's kind of highlighting like, oh, this is what I value. This is what I want. So I think a lot of people are kind of going to be looking at what's going on economically and financially and going, where do we get our ducks in a row, right? Where do we get everything ready? How do we prepare? So when push comes to shove and things do get kind of buck wild around the 5th when we had that eclipse, some people are going to be ready to strike and they're going to jump in and they're going to know how to be able to take advantage of what can potentially be a pretty volatile time. I want to read to you guys the Sabian symbol for the 29 degrees of Aries. This is going to be for the eclipse. So this will actually round up to 30 degrees of Aries. And I laughed out loud because I kept saying like, yeah, getting the ducks in a row, getting the ducks in a row. And it can literally mean what you have a feeling is coming in the area of Aries in your chart, right? The eclipse there, Jupiter's going to hit it. Jupiter sometimes talks about the future. Mercury's going to hit that 29 degrees here pretty soon as well. Listen to Aries of 29 degrees, rounding up to 30. Aries 30, a duck pond and its brood. Keyword is reliability. Theme is contentment. The symbol speaks to everything flowing smoothly when an individual is in tune with himself and the universe. The image of a duck pond and its brood speaks to the natural order of a pattern. A duckling's behavior is based off of imprinting instincts. After birth, each duck bonds himself to the first thing he sees that moves, and it's usually his mother. Thus, ducks ordinarily swim in the pond as a family unit. The ducks are doing what comes naturally in the world in their order. The suggestion here is that individuals will also find their world in order when they act in accord with their own special genius. It's possible that the turn of the century American slang expression, everything is just ducky, meaning fine and satisfactory, and having one's ducks lined up in order provided the basis for early commentary on this image. At its highest, it represents easygoing, unaffected disposition and certain calmness in handling things. Watch for lack of polish, refinement, or lack of sensitivity to danger. The accent is on contentment and satisfaction with the status quo. Business as usual by the word of the day. Your greatest advantage lies in organizing and putting things in order. Follow established routines and be consistent. Guard against complacency. Don't take things for granted or ignore something that's out of the pattern. Alignment, natural accord, stability, belonging, fitness, calm. Guys, there's nothing calm about 29 degrees of Aries. There's nothing calm about it. And what I have found myself doing, because I have a moon in Aries, I can get really kind of like amped up about stuff. And I've just started reminding myself, maybe it's Jupiter, it's like, it's fine, everything's happening according to the plan, right? Everything's working out, everything's fine. This is how it's supposed to go. I have to have faith in that, knowing that this is just part of the plan, just continuing on business as usual. And I'm trying to remind myself to be in that constant state of calm and not allowing myself to get kind of caught up in some of the stuff that's going on in the world, because that doesn't allow me to be grounded to make practical, solid, grounded decisions. It doesn't help me in giving advice to other people. It helps me to be aware and to be forewarned and to plan, but to go about life in a way that's just like, nope, we're just going to keep things moving. Everything's fine. Everything's good. And it's not an ignorance is bliss thing. It's I'm not going to let you rock my boat. There's going to be a lot of boat rocking with this eclipse. But the key is that if you're getting into the swing of things where it's just like, it doesn't matter if the world's on fire, you're still going to continue with your routine and you're not going to get distracted. That's how you know that you're going to be able to kind of weather the storm that's going to come from this eclipse. Like I said, this is going to have an unfolding effect. So when Jupiter comes into this degree and it hits 29 degrees, you're going to see, wow, I'm so glad that I was prepared and I listened to my intuition on this thing right around the time it hits 29 degrees. So that'll be May the 12th through roundabout, let's say the 18th, right? And so actually you could listen to this eclipse and you could go, I'm going to be a little bit, prepared. I'm going to get into a cycle now. I'm going to start preparing for these things now. So look at where Aries is in your chart. Know that that thing is probably inevitably going to happen with that eclipse. Okay, so you got to see where it is. And if you start it a month early and you start getting into that routine, you're not going to get rattled and be kind of thrown off track and go, oh, I need to suddenly start this thing. And it's like stressful. Give yourself a couple times to really get the show on the road and be prepared in that area of your life. Know that Jupiter's got your back. It's a skill that you need to learn. It's something that's actually going to be good for you. It's going to require a lot of courage, but it's going to be a wonderful new beginning because it's setting the stage for all of the domino effect as we move through the rest of the zodiac signs for the rest of the year. And the North Node's going into Aries as well, guys. So when the North Node hits 29 degrees, like it will in July, right on the heels of a new moon in Cancer, you will see then again in mid-July, oh, I'm glad I was prepared, right? And I'm glad I took this action, which led me to the preparedness for this in May, which I'm even more prepared for in July. Start looking at making changes to your finances and your resources. Don't be focusing on buying things and getting further stuck into the debt hole or the rat race. Start learning how to live more sustainably within your means, right? And really ask yourself what changes you can be making so that way you can really be maximizing some of your savings and other things so you're prepared for what can be some challenges that are coming a little bit more so down the road, okay? You can catch me here on Friday evenings. I'm here almost every Friday, 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern. We alternate every other week. We do tarot and astrology readings. So if you're somebody who wants a reading with me, but you can't wait a couple months to have a personal session, come and join me. We're going to do readings by donation, usually a day or two before I post the ad on my community tab so you can sign up. I would love to see you guys. Even if you just want to come and hang out and you want to watch some readings, you can do that as well. If you guys do join my level 3 memberships, I do include one reading once a month. So for those of you guys who like that check-in, you don't want to wait, please do consider joining my memberships. You can find all that information on my page. Donations, I don't ask for them, but you guys can make them. If you guys want to join memberships, get readings, all of these things make it possible for me to be able to keep making this content for you guys, long format, high quality, and bringing it to you guys consistently, because it's been my goal to be able to do YouTube more full time because I feel like I can help more people. And I really appreciate that. If you guys do want to join my memberships or you want to help me grow the channel, If not, giving me a thumbs up, leaving me a comment, and engaging with this video also is really helpful. Maybe send it to a friend in need or share it on a Facebook page, because you never know who may benefit from having this information in the month ahead. If you like my style, you want to book a personal reading with me, my books are open for June and July of 2023. Click the link below. You can head over to my website at beyondtheveiltarot.com and you can book something with me. All of my sessions are live on Zoom 101. I record them. I do everything from picking wedding dates and ideal times for moving, for launches, natal charts. I also do relationship compatibility readings with composite charts and synastry and much more. So check out my services if that's something you guys are interested in. And stay tuned, make sure you're subscribed. Look and see if that button is subscribed below. If it's not, click the button so you know when I have videos coming out, because I'm gonna get ready to put out some eclipse videos for you guys so you know what's kind of coming, how that's gonna be affecting the world and you on a more personal level. Do check out my horoscopes if you guys haven't already. I take you guys through the 12 signs. And I'll be back throughout this week. We're gonna do a deep dive into the Mercury retrograde. We're also gonna be taking a look at a sneak peek into these nodal changes and much, much more. So thank you guys so much. I hope it's a good month ahead for you in April. Happy Sunday, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week. Take care.